I was born for this. I was born for this.
Welcome back to another episode of Cork'd. I'm Jess Kleinschmidt.
And I'm Rachel Luba. Cheers.
I'm surprising you with the wine word, because the wine word today is going to be free agency, Mama, because maybe I want to get lit. I don't know. So we're back. It's been a little bit of a pause between postseason coverage for me, and obviously you started free agency. We took a little bit of a break, so we appreciate y'all coming back. Also, just a heads up, since it is going to be busy for the next little while, we may not have all video content for you guys. We will have audio for sure. We're just going to be super busy, and believe it or not, putting on makeup and eyelashes is a fucking job, and I don't have time to do that every now and then, and neither does Rachel. Plus, it's easier for the background. I know Rachel's going to be busy, so we will still give you content. Maybe throw some Instagram lives in there. I don't know.
You can do that. I'll try to go more on the story on Cork'd Up. So if you really miss like my face or Jess's face, we'll give it to you that way. But it is just, at least with traveling, I have no idea where I am if I'm on the road or whatever. So audio sometimes is just easier. So we'll do our best with video, but if we can't, yeah, just a forewarning that there might be some audio ones.
Yeah, and for the record, I always miss your face, Rachel. So I will be tuning into that. The World Series has begun, so we're going to try to keep up as much as possible with the game going on. Mine's over here. I have people over now watching the game. Like, it's lit, so we're going. But more importantly, before we get to our World Series predictions, I know everybody's curious about that. It's free agency time, Mama. Obviously, Trevor is the biggest name out there in the pool. We're going to get started. I'm a little curious right now. I mean, free agency doesn't technically start until 5 days after the World Series, but what's going on in your world right now? Just kind of give me as little or as much information of like a day-to-day in Rachel's life.
Well, there is a lot of traveling, a lot of meetings, planning. I have a whole team of people, including analysts. I even have, Trevor's marketing agent, and we're all working together. So it's not just me on this, but lots of calls, lots of, Zoom meetings, preparing stuff, getting ready, talking with Bauer a lot in terms of what to expect. And he's obviously a really unique free agent in that most free agents go silent, right? That's always been kind of the advice of agents usually is, the second you hit free agency, don't talk and don't give out any information. And the agents really don't either. They very tactfully will give certain writers information to try to, sway or, get some leverage one way or the other, which you're not actually allowed to do. But that's usually kind of what the MO has always been. Trevor is very different in terms of how he wants to approach free agency. And he very much wants to engage, he's a social media person. He wants to engage different fan bases, all sorts of stuff like that. So it's been fun on that, in that regard. However, I also have to be very careful about what he says so that we don't violate any, rules that the MLB and the MLBPA have in place for free agency and how you're allowed to use the media. So that's kind of been, an interesting wrinkle in it. A little is having to be very careful about what he tweets and monitor that. And then obviously, I've tweeted a little, not that much about free agency, but I have said a few things, which is very different for agents. They usually don't say things. Usually it goes again through to the writers. But I also think, I'm the most followed agent on social media. So
yes, Mama, you is.
Yeah. That's my claim to fame. But look, like I did it on purpose. It's so that at the end of the day, like I'm not beholden to any writers. Like if I need to get something out there, I can say it myself. I have a platform now. So that's been beneficial, but again, very non-traditional.
Right. And so you mentioned like the swaying of the writers. Naturally, my ears perked up. What does that mean? And how can I benefit from that?
Yeah. So everybody wants to, have any sort of information. So anything that they can write about. a lot of times, so you're not supposed to use the media in order to, gain leverage one way or the other. That's kind of a rule that's put in place. However, there are plenty of times where, somehow something gets leaked about a certain team that might be interested, and it ends up, it's very calculated, and then whoever leaks it is doing it for some sort of advantage, usually because they want, if one team is interested, the other
They
team
want a shit ton of retweets and favorites. That's all it is.
Yeah. So look, like there's an advantage for whoever leaks it, usually because it's strategic, and then you have the writers want the attention. Again, we've talked about this before in other episodes, but you guys love being the ones to like break news and have inside information.
Yeah.
So I've had plenty of writers already like reach out to me and, oh, can I be the one who, when he decides?
Wait, that's like an actual conversation. Are these like big names, like names that would kind of shock you?
Yeah, I mean, I won't like.
I know, and then you don't have to tell me names.
Yeah.
But I really would you look down your phone and be like, interesting? I didn't think this guy or girl had that in them.
Yeah. So
for the record, I've never asked Rachel. For the record, I've never asked Rachel.
I will confirm that you have never asked me.
Yeah.
But look, like I think we talked about this actually with Britt. I feel like a few weeks ago, but just briefly on text messaging. But I can't tell, and you tell me this. Like, answer the question: is Trevor a nightmare for writers and for the media in his free agency, or is he like the greatest thing to happen for you guys? Because he's not silent. Like he's not, like he's giving you stuff, but a lot of times it's like kind of pointless stuff, and he's putting it out himself. So he's taking away your guys' like fun of, getting the race of like getting to be the first one to break information or whatever. So
So yes and no. I don't know if I'm the perfect or the worst person to ask, because the content that I put out, it's not going to be like stuffy stuff. Like I kind of like this, like even the stuff I wrote about with Trevor, like would he be a good match for the Giants? And the Giants insider was like, well, yeah, but like the Giants aren't going to make the postseason next year. And like, so a lot of it, all it takes is a rumor, Rach, a little bit of a rumor. And even for me last year or 2 years ago, when we were in the Bryce Harper sweepstakes, getting him to the Giants, we had so much fun with it. And he was the type of personality to make it interesting. And that's why I liked Trevor. So for me personally, I think he's the best. However, I'm not a stuffy writer who'd be like, well, what does this mean? What does this mean? Like if he just tweets out and he's trolling people, I thrive on that shit.
That's I feel like, again, it's moving away from the traditional aspect of it or the traditional kind of take on free agency. But I think that you have to be able to understand it's going to bother a lot of people because, again, a lot of it is trolling. It's having fun with it. It's, just look, like, let's give people in the off season something to talk about. Hopefully we won't have another Astro scandal or something like that. So like, let's make it fun rather than just crickets until whenever he signs or baseless rumors. So again, I think everyone needs to kind of keep in mind the context of everything, and that a lot of it is, having fun and, engaging people, but it's also a business, and this is a very important part in Trevor's career. And so, like we're not jeopardizing that part.
But I'm not going to lie. I think it's going to be the most unique free agency, not just because of post-pandemic or mid-pandemic, and we'll talk about that in a second, but I feel like, because you asked that question, is this going to be the best thing to happen to writers? I think in a way it will be, but he's also showing that what he's wanted to do from the beginning is show how baseball can be unique and fun and different. And him trolling everything is kind of making it fun for me. Like I'm sitting there like, what's next? Because for me, there's always going to be something to aggregate from or look at or even analyze. Like, I don't think he'd be a good fit for the A's, not because he wouldn't be good, physically, but monetarily, of course not. But like, why the fuck not? If he's going to troll it, I want to write on it. Be like, why wouldn't this be a good fit? And you have to make sure it makes everything go. So I think he would piss off writers losing that lack of control, like that the writers feel like they might have. So if he brings
that's going to be the biggest thing. Yeah. And I totally agree with you. he's taking away your guys' moment, kind of, and your guys' ability to.
Okay, Trevor will never take my moments away. Let's just say my moments will never be taken away by Trevor Bauer. Love you, Trevor. That's not going to happen. But yes,
I agree, because you'll outsmart him there, but and you won't let him do that to you. But there are plenty that will, and they'll get upset that they, look, like, I get it. That's how it's going to be. I think it should be fun. I think it's also fun that there are plenty of teams to feel like, and fan bases to feel like, look, anything's possible, and like, let's reach out to him, and you never know, like, he might respond, kind of thing, and let's tell him we want him in our city. There are so many free agents, and like during different years where, even Harper, right, is on the market, and I would say a majority of fan bases knew, like, at the end of the day, they looked at where they were at, they looked at their market, they looked at the finances, and they're like, we have no chance. And so it's just kind of whatever, we just ignore him on the market altogether. Yeah. Whereas whether it's likely that Bauer ends up in one of any of these cities or not, fan bases kind of feel like, hey, let's just like reach out to him and tell him we want him. Like, let's have a little fun with it. Yeah. There's a period right now where he's the perfect guy to do
that too. Like, if it was like John Carlos Stanton, it'd be like, okay, like,
but like,
let's Trevor.
I think fan bases like, give me your pitch. Tell me why your team is the best team and would be a great fit for him. And that's fun for fans. So I'm all for it. It freaks people out. I've already gotten a number of people all across the industry reached out to me and are super they're like, oh, whoa, what are you doing? And I even have, and then, like trolls on Twitter that try to act like they know the rules, or, oh, because she's talking, she's a bad agent, she doesn't know what she's doing. Like, settle down. Like, I know what I'm doing.
When were these guys agents or these girls agents? They need to chill. No, I feel like you need to kind of test the waters. And I feel like, if anything, you as an agent are showing people like, you're allowed to have a voice, you're allowed to talk, you're allowed to do these things, you're allowed to have a presence on social media. And I think that's what's kind of cool about it all. And even the stuff that I'm trying to put out, it's like, you don't have to be a prim and proper freaking writer. I talked about we had an unprecedented season, and I talked about this on Bach Talk, and it was interesting because we have no idea what this free agency is going to look like, because it's the first time post pandemic season. It was a weird season. We don't know how monetary restrictions are going to be and value and everything like that. So overall, Trevor not included, George Springer is going to be a free agent, Liam Hendriks, Marcus freaking Semien. I think Simeon's going to be interesting because he did have a dip in his numbers, and I think that's going to help him hopefully come back to the A's. But when you think about that from an overall standpoint, and we both love Liam Hendriks, so the Liam Hendriks of the world we think deserve all the money in the world. And I looked at some of these arbitration possibilities, and they broke it down from like after a 60-game season, comparing that to maybe a 162-game season. What's the overall outlook for this free agency? Because I've handled a lot of free agencies as part of the media, but after this, like, what could that possibly look like?
I mean, if we're talking like, let's ignore arbitration because that's a whole other monster to tackle. But free agency is going to be, it's going to be a unique one for a variety of reasons. And that one you didn't really hit on that I think, though, is going to be another kind of like factor that's going to play into it is we have the CBA is up after this year. Yeah. And I really do believe that the way teams act in the open market, there is some level of direction that MLB gives teams, and there is strategy there in terms of, look, you saw the first 2 years, it was a really slow market and they weren't, teams weren't really spending. It was a big issue. There were grievances filed from the MLBPA, et cetera.
Well, let's take one step back, just because like I'm kind of an idiot and I have to explain things to people. CBA is the collective bargaining agreement.
Yes.
Give it like the 5-year-old version of like what that means. The collective bargaining. Yeah.
So it's basically every 4 years, and all the different leagues that are unionized have a CBA. They collectively bargain and they come to an agreement in terms of all sorts of just rules and kind of regulations as to what players, like the rules for what players have to follow, to how salaries work, what the minimum salary is that you can pay players, like everything about this sport. It's basically the players' rights. And so the union who represents the players negotiates, just like they have in, I know supermarkets, like there's the unions for that, and there's unions and all sorts of things. And they negotiate an agreement as to like what the players or the employees' rights are with the company. And so that's what the whole collective bargaining agreement covers, the whole gamut of basically all of the players' rights, restrictions, etc. And if they don't agree to it, what happens is, either if the players don't agree to it, they can strike. A strike, though, could really only happen when they had the CBA was up in the middle of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So because the season already began, the players can say, we're not playing anymore, we're not working. However, after the last strike, I believe in 95, which was in the middle of the season, they changed it so the CBA is now negotiated right at the end of the season and then during the off season. So basically, the only way that there could not be baseball played because there is an agreement, is not an agreement, is if the owners lock you out because you haven't started the season yet, which means players can't technically strike.
Right.
So basically what would happen is the owners would lock the players out and say, look, fine, you don't come to work, like we don't have an agreement. And that's what would happen until there was an agreement that both sides could come to. So there's obviously a lot of, whenever they renegotiate the CBA every 4 years, things change, and it shifts kind of power a lot of times in one direction, whether the owners or the players. And like after the last CBA, we saw for 2 years after that, teams weren't really spending anymore, and players were upset about it. There were grievances filed. There were teams that were getting payouts from basically the luxury tax, and then they end up, there's certain teams in smaller markets that get a portion of that money. But they were receiving that money from teams, but they weren't spending for on-field like players to the threshold that they're required to in order to receive extra funds. So there were a lot of issues that went on. Then I believe that when you had this last off season, because it's getting a lot closer to the CBA being up, this past year, we saw teams spending quicker, and which kind of allowed the players and the player side to chill a little, because every off season, the last 2 ones before that, they were freaking out. Like, this is a really big problem. It's something we're going to have to negotiate in, the CBA. Now, then all of a sudden they were signing players, spending money. And so, it kind of calmed the worries a little for the players. And I think there was a strategic reason to, pick it up a little in the market, so that way you don't go into the CBA with players like really upset and pissed about what's happening.
And so what's the vibe now with free agency?
Well, so I guess to tie this in, I think that's another factor is we have to think about the fact that the CBA is up. So it's going to be it's a balancing act with MLB, and I don't know what they're going to do, but do you not really restrict the salaries and contracts and the spending on the team side, because you don't want to, really fuel this fire with being pissed off on the player side going into the CBA negotiation next year, because then they're going to not want to agree to anything. They're going to be really pissed. So you have that factor. You also have, obviously, we don't know, or, teams lost money, so they don't want to, they're going to argue they don't want to spend. And you also have the reality that we don't know, will there be fans next season? Like, yeah.
It's not even
it's not official. So we don't know. So there's a whole bunch of issues that you're gonna have to deal with. I think the free agent market for players at the upper echelon of the market, the elite players, the cream of the crop, I think teams will spend on those players.
Like George Springer, give him all the money. I think
teams will spend on that. I think where we're really gonna see, teams kind of not wanting to spend, and it might be a lot tougher for the middle class of the market, and that's unfortunate, but hopefully
A's don't fall there, so we're not worried about it.
Yeah, I mean, you guys don't really spend regardless, but like a lot of those,
just the owners like hearing this to like, oh yeah, we have another excuse. Okay.
Yeah, it's just look. It's fun. You know what's funny though? So I was thinking about this because last postseason, you had the Astros and the Nationals, and I was so excited that the Nationals won because that was I believe it was the oldest team in baseball. Like the average ages, it was the players were the oldest out of all.
Their ages. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So sorry. Yeah, the players' ages, and because of this whole issue in the last several years of guys as they get older, like basically being 33 or 34 now in baseball is, like being almost 50, like it was, several years ago.
Yeah.
So, but it's changed, right? And so then now we've seen teams like the way they view players, who are not even that old now, they are just like, we're not going to spend money on them, and they're signing and keeping and playing younger guys, right?
Like,
so
age 29 to 30 is like scary. You'd think it was a model, like a female model, like turning 29, 30. It's the scariest thing. Yeah.
So look, like I was really excited for baseball. I thought it was really good to see a team, the team with the oldest, the players. I don't know how to say this. I don't know why I'm struggling here, but the oldest average ages of the players were you get what I'm saying here, but it was the Nationals.
I'm catching what you're throwing, Mama. I don't care about anybody else. I get it.
Okay, so that was great for baseball because it shows, look, old guys can play too, right? So like
experienced.
Yeah, experienced. Let's go with that.
They don't get offended. Men are very sensitive. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Okay. So the experienced are still valuable. That was the takeaway. Now this year I was thinking about it and I was like, we have, and then by the way, the Astros were one of the youngest teams, like homegrown, right? They have a lot of guys that are still, not a ton of free agent contracts, younger guys. Then this year you have one of, I think, the second highest payroll in baseball playing the third lowest payroll in baseball. And it'll be an interesting, to see kind of how it plays out and who wins. It's, look, I think the fact that they both got to the World Series says something, but a part of me almost wants, like, I want to root for the Dodgers because I want it to be like, look, spend money, you win spending money equals win the World Series versus don't spend money, be really cheap and really creative, and then win the World Series like the Rays if they win.
I wrote an article on it saying the A's can do it if the Rays can. Right,
exactly. But so as an agent and an advocate for players, I would much rather see a team that spends money win.
Yeah. And as somebody who covers the A's, I'm like,
you're like, if they can do it, we can.
I mean, obviously the A's need more starting pitching. That's a whole different thing. So I know we mentioned Liam and I sent you the link, and he made the Sporting News All-Stars, whatever that is. It doesn't mean shit, right? But I'm glad that Sporting News stepped up to the plate and we're like, there needs to be some sort of award for guys because it's not going to happen. So Baseball Reference this year, they will not have any sort of all-star selections.
However, they're doing an MLB, apparently, like all team.
Right.
MLB.
So, and they did. Yeah. So is it going to be like how it was last year with the inaugural thing where it's like the second half technically, or?
It's basically, I think they're just going to use the full season. They're going to pick an MLB, all MLB team or whatever.
Okay.
And
is that
going to fewer players and it will.
All-stars though?
No, it'll be considered the MLB, like all MLB or whatever they call it team. It's not an all-star. So okay. I had conversations with the union about this and multiple players. Players didn't really understand why. They kind of thought, a lot of players I talked to actually thought, they were like, oh, that of course they're going to pick an all-star team. And we know we're not having it, but they're going to pick it. Did something just happen?
No, I was just checking. We're fine, Mama.
No,
I thought you knew.
I
Yeah, the
didn't.
Wizards are up 2-0. Sorry, I was going
All
to
right.
tell you, but
All
you
right.
were ass deep in a beautiful free agency conversation. I
Whatever.
didn't ruin it. Yeah.
Team with one of the highest payrolls, yay, scored. Okay. So they were upset. They figured, of course, it doesn't cost any money. Like, you can't argue we can't select an all-star team because of COVID. And even if you want to say that, let's not give them any bonuses that they would have for making the all-star team, or even let's prorate those bonuses. Like, that should be fine. You don't even have to pay them, but just giving them the nod is going to be so valuable in the long run, for monetarily and just career accolades for Hall of Fame, etc. And MLB won't do it. Smart on MLB's part, because that's a lot of money in the arbitration system. Yeah. That's a lot of things. So they're smart. I mean, they'll argue, it's just an an all-star selection, but like, they know exactly why they don't want to give that. And to me, it's kind of bullshit, because it's not that hard. You should pick a damn all-star team. You have enough game.
I totally agree. And I'm thinking it from because and this is a weird question. I'm gonna try to phrase it as good as possible. But say, for instance, you're in the middle of arguing with how much this guy's worth. Even though there wasn't an all-star selection technically, we're going to use Liam Hendriks, a sub 1.80 ERA on the season. You would have to say, oh, and that translates into whatever ERA for a 162 season. Would that be an argument at all?
Like, basically scaling it?
Yeah, like, oh, and what that would translate to into a regular season would mean this.
Sure. Like, so there's going to be certain ways that they're going to come to an agreement as to how they're going to scale certain things. But at the end of the day, think about it. If I'm the team and you make that argument to me, I'm going to say, sure, that's assuming that he could, perform at that level for 162 games. And we all know that, maintaining a certain level of performance for that long is a challenge in and of itself. So, you can make that argument, but it's not really a fair argument. It's not super accurate.
I won't make that argument with you if we ever have an argument. Deal. So we're going to start wrapping things up. And I want to know, what are your World Series predictions? Because I think I might have to do a panic pick. So I want you to go first.
Why? They score again?
No, don't look at that. No. My panic pick is because overall, I'll tell you when it's my turn to pick.
I have the Rays. I picked the Rays. My bracket got fucked up in a lot of different ways, but because I also had the Reds beating the Braves in the first round. So there goes that. But I had in the World Series, I had the Dodgers and the Rays. I have the Rays winning the whole thing. I also did not realize that they're not doing, that they went back to the format of the 2 games off day, 3 games off day, 2, which changes things a lot. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize they were going to do that, because it's going to give, the Dodgers, I thought the Rays would have an advantage because with their starting pitching, their bullpen, I thought the Dodgers would be at a disadvantage without the off days, because they can't reorganize and shift around their starting pitching and reset with an off day if they didn't have an off day. And so I don't think they have enough depth in their starting rotation. So I thought the Rays would have a clear advantage if you didn't have the off days. So now that I know we have off days, and we went back to the old format, I think it's going to be close. I want the Rays to win, just because I think I really like that team.
But you also hate the Dodgers. So
it's the Giants, Giants. Yeah, I have to but listen, look, the agent in me would like the Dodgers to win, because again, if you spend money equals World Series. I like that.
Right. So I'm pulling for the Rays for a multitude of reasons. I do believe they have strong starting rotation. a very durable starting rotation and a good bullpen as well. And the top three bullpens, their ERA during the regular season were the Rays, the A's, and the Dodgers. So it goes to show you have a strong bullpen, and the Dodgers have a really strong defense. They have a really good way of making a lot of balls turn into outs. You see Mookie Betts, don't hit near him. Do not hit near him, and you'll be fine. But I told you my panic decision. I wrote it because I knew I was going to have to make a panic decision. It would be the Rays. And that's just like more of a personal thing. I got my first postseason game I got to cover was the A's Rays wild card game, to see Blake Snell just being chill, and like Tommy Pham and Chris Davis, they're super close, and to see them talk. And I don't know, it was just a cool situation. So somebody that the A's have a more solid connection to would be really cool to see. But I love the underdog story. But I also want Clayton Kershaw to win to get a ring. I really do. So
yeah, that's a tough one for him. It's funny because
I don't
every like postseason. What?
I don't hate either team, so that's good.
You're not a real like you. Then don't.
I don't hate
the Giants though. As like you can't have a relationship with the Giants, and I don't hate the Dodgers. I
am not dating the Giants.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Look, I kind of had to break up with the Giants too, just because as an agent, like, I can't like hate a, team that could very well be somewhere where a client goes. So it's funny because all my even like law school or college friends from SoCal who always hated on me because I was, the Giants Bay Area sports were really good the last several years while I was in school down there. Yeah, so like SoCal hates that, and so there was always that rivalry with my friends down there, and now they're all texting me, and I like tell them like, look, I don't really hate the Dodgers anymore. And
how do you handle people that you grew up with and like? Because even me, like, they'll see me on TV and be like, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to you since cheerleading. I'm like, bitch, you didn't even talk to me when we were cheerleaders together. And I know you don't like cheerleaders. Yeah, I know. Sorry, too soon. But at the same time, like, you're Trevor Bauer's agent. Like, what's like the most annoying thing you've heard from somebody you haven't talked to in like maybe a decade?
I don't know if I would say, like, there was one.
I bet you there's like a Facebook message in there recently that was like, hey, how are you? I hear Trevor Bauer is a free agent.
Yeah, I get people, there's people like talk to my parents that are like, can you get him to go here? And then I have people that reach out to me that it's been several years since I've talked to them that are like, I need to know, like, what are the odds that he ends up at this team that I like love? And I'm like, there's 1 in 30 chance. They're like, no, I'm like, I need better than that. I'm like, you're going to get it. That's my answer. Like, final answer.
Like, I think it's like one of like 30 teams. I don't know.
Yeah. And then he even like threw in the wrench of adding in the NPB teams. Trevor did the other day. Yeah. So they're really hyped about that. So maybe it's more than 1 in 30. But I just kind of tell them that I think the amount of times now, because I try to respond to everybody's Instagram comments, which is a pain in the ass, but
yeah, don't do that.
it's something I've done because when I first made that account, the public account, like 2 years ago, I was told that to grow it, you have to have the engagement. And so I respond to everybody's, and like, there's plenty of comments that I don't enjoy responding to, but now the amount of times that I have to respond to, can you get him, Trevor Bauer, here to this team? I just like, right. Haha, we shall see.
There you go.
Copy paste. So maybe they're going to like catch on that, like, that's the best you're going to get from me at the moment.
And I feel like the reason why you want to stay silent, and this is me playing devil's advocate for the other agents, is like, they don't have to answer all these other things. Like, this is where he should go. This is where he should go. And even like, because we spin things too, like as the media, like, remember I told you, I was like, hey, Trevor looks good in Kelly Green, because somebody put him in like a jersey swap. And all you had to respond.
Tampa got one at least.
I'm on a delay. What is here? Yeah, that's true. The Rays will not be shut out tonight, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, there he goes. KK. Oh, did you see him with his little baby? It was so cute.
I die every time. Little
And,
baby.
and the reason why, like I said, is like so they don't have to answer those questions. So they don't have to deal with all the BS. So that's just me trying to be a friend to you and saying like, don't let it stress you out. Let me know how I can respond in smart ass ways and do whatever. But yeah, because that's what I say, like they can spin it, because when all you wrote was like interesting, I could have easily written an article and been like, Trevor Bauer's agent thinks it's interesting.
You should. The only reason that I responded that to you was because it's you, and I knew that you were not going to do that. But I had a writer the other day reach out to me, and I gave him I was going to answer his question, which like I didn't really want to answer exactly, but I gave a very like roundabout, like kind of not relevant, but like tangentially relevant answer.
Ooh.
But I was very careful.
It's sexy when you use like multiple syllables in your words.
Thank you. I tried just for you. But I was like very careful about, I'm used to like when I respond to a text or something, like I like it to like flow nicely and not sound like super abrupt and bitchy. And so I was going to be like, yeah, but this, and give my answer. And then I was like, hold on, like knowing what I know about writers, they're going to take that in the very beginning and be like, oh, that answered the original question that I never wanted to answer directly, and they're gonna write a whole article. And I was like, all right, first of all, like I'm not gonna do it that way, so I'm just gonna have a very abrupt sounding, like, you know, that like answer response that doesn't flow. But you know, even if I did do it that way, I would screenshot it, and if they ever tried to write an article, like, well, this means that
Mama has a presence on social media.
Yeah, so I look like the Giants, there's a bunch of like fan accounts even today, the Giants like posted stuff because I wrote about, because everyone's talking about the Dodgers, and you know, they've been in the World Series like 3 times in 4 years. And so I tweeted the other day, I was like, let's not forget that, you know, and the Giants won 3 rings in, you know, 5 years.
Yeah.
So that got picked up by a lot of Giants accounts, and they were like, it's confirmed, like Bauer to the Giants. I'm like, all right, yeah, that's our.
Like, sure. Isn't that in the meme? Like nobody. Rachel breathes. Wow, Trevor Bauer to the Giants, done deal. But it's fun. Not even as like a writer, as some of as much bullshit as Bryce Harper put me through, because the Giants, of course, were the bridesmaids. I had fun with a lot of those rumors, because literally I got a source telling me there was no way in hell Bryce would sign with the Phillies. And then he signed with the Phillies. So it just goes to show, like, you know what? I'm not going to be right about a lot of things. My sources, and how weird the free agency is. Like, shit happens. So you're doing amazing, sweetie. And I think that you deserve a lot more credit. And I love that Trevor's trolling everything and having fun, and everything's good. But we will be back next time. And I missed you, Reach, and I missed our little people. It was crazy, but you know what? We're working ass women. What are you gonna do? You know?
Yeah, bummer. But anyways, I missed you too. I missed your face, and I missed getting to make an episode for the Cork'd Up fan, because I really do love you guys.
We love y'all so much. And I've done a lot of Bach Talk episodes, and nobody's like, when's the next episode of Bach Talk coming out? But when Cork'd Up misses a week, people know. So we'll see you next time, and thanks for tuning in. And I don't think we drank enough the amount of times we talk about free agency, but that's okay, because we'll catch up next time. So cheers, and we'll see you next time, fam.
Cheers.
Cheers.